Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if you're new here. I trust that the conversations that are meant to find you always do. So, this is a space where ambition meets embodiment, where soul meets strategy, and where we don't talk about transformation, we actually experience it in real time. So, today's conversation is one that feels deeply human and yet deeply needed because we're not just talking about confidence, we're talking about identity, belonging, and what it really means to see yourself as powerful, even in the spaces where the world may have not reflected back to you. I'm joined today by a woman whose work is shifting how children and honestly all of us see difference. Through storytelling, advocacy, and lived experience, she's helped rewrite the narrative around disability, not as limitation, but as strength. And she happens to be the guest and sister of one of our previous guests on the Rise with Anita podcast, Kat Magnoli. And what I love about her work is that she's not just teaching inclusion, she's embodying empowerment. And before we dive into this conversation, I am going to invite both Kat and the audience listening right now to just arrive with me. So if you're able to place your feet on the ground, soften your shoulders, relax your jaw, and close your eyes gently and just notice, where are you right now? And let's take a breath together. Inhaling slowly through your nose for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding for 4. And exhaling through your mouth for 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. And release for 6. And there's nothing you need to change. Just allow yourself to be present in this moment right here, right now. So, Kat, I'm super excited to have you here and be able to share your story.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I'm the little sister of the amazing Lydia Magnoli, and I saw her interview with you, and it was so cool. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to contact this person and just let her know who I am and see if maybe she'd want to, interview me too. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, absolutely. I love Lydia. I love just seeing you guys and how you guys have such intricate different personalities, but you're both so strong and resilient and beautiful. And I'm super grateful to be able to do this.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm so happy to have you here. But before we go anywhere else, what's bringing you joy in this current season?
Honestly, and we'll get into this later, but with the life that I've led, I try to find joy in every moment because life is short and life is fleeting. So I try to find the silver lining in all my struggles. I try to find the joy in every moment, even if it's just me sitting here watching a show or it's like, whatever it is. I always just try to find the joy in each moment.
That's beautiful. So I feel like really what you're saying is you find joy in the present,
Yeah.
like just being present. And that's such a beautiful concept. And when you think about it, we're in a time where most people are distracted, whether it's your cell phone, whether it's just your mind can be, you could be present in a conversation, but your mind can be outside. And what I love about your answer is just bringing it to what you're already experiencing.
Yeah. That is how I operate again because I've dealt with, and I don't want to get too into it, but with my disability, there comes a lot of health issues. So when you deal with a lot of health issues, you realize how short life is. And that has made me want to be present in any interaction that I have, whether it's with a stranger, a family member, a doctor, a friend, a boyfriend, whatever it is. I want to be like looking you in the eye. I want to hear everything that you have to say and I want to respond accordingly. And that's just how I am. So even if I'm doing something in that current moment, if someone walks in to talk to me, I put it aside and I give them the attention that they need.
That's so beautiful. And I want to acknowledge that because I think that presence is such a gift. it's actually like something we all long for, I think, but it gets so easily, we can make excuses as why not to do it. And so I think the fact that you were able to take something so what people would not be able to really live with, or we come up with our stories of our limitations, or I don't even call it a limitation, but we come up with our stories around what our experiences are, is the better way of saying it.
Mhm.
And so for you to be like, no, I'm just gonna live present and be aware and just honor it is so beautiful. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, because that shows so much about who you are on the inside.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So diving straight into here, not from everything you've built, but let's start with you. Growing up, you did grow up with a disability.
Yeah,
I'm not going to pronounce it because I don't want to butcher it. But what was your relationship with yourself like as a child?
that's a really good starting question. So I went through like waves of different uh, levels of confidence. So I'll start from when I was very young. I was put into a school whose name back then was St. Agnes Children's Rehabilitation Center. And it was a school primarily for children with varying disabilities. And so, even though I'm the only person with a disability in my family, I always, growing up at a very young age, had a sense of like belonging, and so I never really saw my disability as anything different. I had like a confidence. I always wanted to be involved in everything that was going on at home or at school. And I always wanted to be a part of things. Then at the age of 8, I transitioned out of that cocoon of comfort and acceptance and was kind of pushed into the world of general education, where I grew up in a small town and I was the only person with a physical disability throughout my schooling. So that tremendous confidence that was built at a very young age, between the ages of 3 and 8 years old, was then slowly but surely torn down by the fact that my peers just didn't understand the disability that I have, which is called spina bifida. So I'm sure you wouldn't have butchered it. Um, and to make matters worse, a lot of the adults in the room really didn't know how to talk about it either. So it was just like a very strange situation. And I had to kind of find outside outlets that kind of helped me cope with the feeling of just all of a sudden being different and not really knowing where I fit in. And so I turned to writing. I have always been someone that loves to write. So that was like my emotional outlet. I always kept a journal, or just really liked English class, like, writing essays and stuff. And that would be like my way of getting out whatever emotion I was feeling at the time.
Interesting. So you actually, I want to take a moment to really acknowledge, like, you went from actually feeling very confident to then almost feeling, and I don't want to place this as like, from my perspective, like an outsider.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate? You started writing, but how did you navigate that day to day? What emotions were you feeling really? And did you find yourself feeling comfortable enough to lean on anybody at that point?
I think there was always, I don't want to like paint a picture where I had no one, There were always like a couple of kids that were very like intrigued by me and wanted to get to know me, and really wanted to form a friendship with me. I mean, I have so many stories of people that have come into my life that have really made a mark. Like for one, uh, I reconnected with an old friend on social media. I think it was last year. And the moment that we reconnected, his name is Rashawn Hardy. and we went to elementary school together. And the moment that we reconnected, we immediately both came out with this one memory that we have of each other where we were at the sixth grade canteen dance, which was like the end of the year dance. And of course, I wanted to dance with the coolest guy in the sixth grade, and his name was Chris. I won't say his full name because I don't want to like call him out or anything, but he refused to dance with me. And I was really hurt by this. You know, I was sad, but Rashawn just kind of jumped to the chance and was like, I'll dance with you. And so there were those moments where I was like, okay, there are good people. There are people that will accept me, will, make me feel included. So there, it wasn't all like, oh my gosh, I had no one. There was always like one or two people that would show me kindness and show inclusion while I was growing up.
Beautiful. And it's interesting that you brought that up because it's like you were still in your own way having a, I don't want to call it normal experience, but like you were doing what you could to make yourself feel normal is
Yeah.
the best way I'll frame that.
Hmm.
And so there's also a specific type of resilience you must have started to have once you transitioned from a place that felt safe to something that's a bit more outside of your comfort zone. So my next like intuitive question that's coming through is just what really, as you were dealing with this new experience, what was something that was keeping you going when you saw that, okay, I feel very different? And did you see your difference at that point as something like, this is part of my story, this is just how I'm wired? Or was there that, like, man, I wish I was quote unquote normal?
I'm going to say there was a little bit of both growing up. So back when I was 4 years old, I had a big epiphany, I guess you could call it, where I turned to my mother and I asked her, why is it that all of you can walk and I'm in a wheelchair? Like, what's going on here? Basically, is what I said at 4 years old. Very intuitive and, and insightful. And she told me a story that stuck with me. She told me that the spine is like a magical tree that has these magical leaves called nerves that help you move your arms and legs. And I'm missing some of my magical leaves. But she went on to tell me that even though I couldn't move my legs, that I could still do anything else that I put my heart and mind into. And that has personally been the driving force through all the things that I've done. And on top of that, again, I'm going to go back to my health. It's like when you go through as many life threatening situations as I've been, and again, I'm not like I'm not victimizing myself. This is just a part of my journey. You start to realize that you have an inner strength, that God is, or whatever the higher power that you believe in, is there for you and is helping you through all these difficult moments of your health. And that is also another driving force. Now, on the flip side of that, you ask, did I ever feel like I was, you know, like mad about my situation? Of course, especially when you're in your teenage years and you want, the hottest guy in school to want to date you and he doesn't want to date you, or you don't get invited to the party on the weekend. Of course, you start to experience what I call internalized ableism, which is when you start to tell yourself, like, okay, I'm the problem, I'm weird, and that's why nobody wants to invite me to these things. And so I definitely experienced that at like, especially within my teenage years, which again might be a normal experience, just layered with a disability. Because a lot of the time, teenagers go through that feeling of like, oh, I don't fit in, and they have all this angst and like, so I definitely experienced that, but it was more internalized to my physical situation.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things there that I really want to pick at. And firstly, you got to the role of faith. So, would you say from a young age you already had that faith instilled, or is it something you had to rely on as you grew?
Um, Again, I feel like it went in waves, just like my confidence. I feel like when I was very young, I had a strong faith. Then again, like in my teenage to early 20s, it kind of faltered a little. Um, but luckily, God works in mysterious ways. And I met a man who not only ignited my faith in a higher power, but uh, just really changed my mindset completely. So this was a person that I met at my dialysis center. He was a patient at the time. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But long story short, he was a Holocaust survivor and at the age of 16 had lost his entire family. And so it was, and he's sharing all of this with me, but he also said within his story that he looks at me every time I go into the dialysis center and he says a little prayer for me. And that blew my mind that someone that had been through so many hardships would even have the capacity to show love and concern and compassion to another human being that they don't even know. Like, we didn't know each other. We just sat across from each other at the dialysis center. So that was a big pivotal moment in my life where I was like, wow, there are strangers out there that are sending me messages that, like, there is a higher power and that they believe that good things are coming for me. And so that was a big turning point for me. That came at the age of 22, 23, somewhere around
Beautiful.
there.
That's such a beautiful experience because it's just a reminder that we all have the capacity to smile at someone, to send them that like internal prayer of like, I'm just sending you, I don't know what you're going through, but sending you love, sending you the ability to have that healing or whatever it is that you need. And it's simple and it just reminds me of like a concept of like being the energy that you wish to have on you.
hmm
So it's like the world can be a little bit of a hard place. I'm sure you already know this experience, but if we strip it down, we're here to really impact and receive, not receive, well, receive for the sake of like sharing our knowledge. And what I really want to take a moment is you're at this point where you've gone through these experiences and you're here to really utilize them to actually make an impact. So you're not looking at this as, why did this happen to me? It's more of this perspective of this happened for me so I could share it.
hmm
So
Exactly.
I
And I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly what happened when I met this person. I started to see my situation so differently because I'm like, if he can go through all the craziness that he's gone through at such a young age, like, and still be such a light in this world, like, I should be doing the same. I, so I actually went to him and I was like, how can I impact people the way that you've impacted me? That was pretty much word for word what I said. And he was like, I have the perfect thing for you. And what he did was he set up a meeting for me where I would meet with a principal of a school called Kesher, which is for children within the autism spectrum and other learning disabilities. And I would go in there and be a volunteer teacher assistant. And I did that for 5 years. And it was the best. Like, it was a lot of work and I learned a lot, but I look back at that experience as such an amazing thing because yes, I was there to like teach them their ABCs and one, two, threes, but they actually helped me by showing their strength and their courage to deal with their day to day, and it renewed my own, you know. And so it was a really great moment, and that's what inspired me to write my children's book, The Adventures of Cat Girl. So I don't want to jump too
Amazing.
ahead, but that's really how the story goes.
That's amazing. So I'm curious because you speak so powerfully about reframing your disability as strength. Was that something that came from this connection, or did you already have that mindset going in, or was it a little bit of a both
I
at
think
different seasons?
it's a little bit of both. As I mentioned, the whole magical tree story was still in me, even though I had experienced a moment in time where I was dealing with my own internalized ableism. I still had this like tenacity of like, I'm going to show the world that I'm more than what they think. And so that was always in me. But I think as far as like wanting to put out a story about disability and actually work in that world, I think that came from the experience of being around these kids with autism and other learning disabilities. Because before that, with the internalized ableism that I felt at a young, not a young age, but like teens to early 20s, I kind of shut that world out. You know, I only had friends that were non-disabled. I only dated boys that were non-disabled. So to jump back into that world or to wheel back into that world was kind of a big deal for me because I had really distanced myself from it. From age 8 to age 22, I distanced myself from that world. And so it was a big deal going back in and just being like, all right, I'm going to embrace my disability now and I'm going to use it as a way to educate society so no one else has to go through this like not lack of identity, but this struggle with their identity that I had gone through from age like 12 to 22, you know? So I definitely think that that was what pushed me into wanting to do
That's amazing.
it.
That's incredible because when you look at your life, it's like literally you have this like bridge component of like you've had the experience of being very seen, being very normalized, then feeling like the outsider, but then also coming back to how do I bridge the two worlds together to marry them and to show what this experience can really be like. So it's just you're incredible. I'm sorry to say that. Like because it's like I have no other words, but like to think about your experience in that holistic sense of like what you've gone through and the identity shifts that you've had to kind of weave in. So, for a second, talking about identity, what would you say you had to do in order to cultivate a adaptable identity?
Meaning, like, can you elaborate?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I say adaptable, it's just like you weren't necessarily the same person in both environments. So you had to adapt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was how did you create that adaptable identity? And then also the tail end of what's coming to mind for me is also how did you stick to who you are as an individual, if that makes sense?
If I'm understanding the question, you're asking me how did I adapt when I was put from an environment with
Different.
kids with
Mhm.
disabilities and kids without. Okay, so I think the way that I tried to do it, which is not something that I would actually
Recommend.
recommend, is that I almost tried to deny my disability to myself and to others. And what I mean by that is whatever my friends were doing, I was doing. So whether it was, you know, I don't know, like staying up late, which is probably not really good for anybody because we all need sleep, but I would like go and I would pull all-nighters with my friends, especially when we got older and there was like drinking involved and like, so I would always try to adapt to my environment and show people that, hey, I'm just sitting here, but I'm doing what you're doing. And so that was, again, not something that I would recommend because it probably wasn't the healthiest choice for me at the time. I mean, I really denied my health a lot. For example, like I have this one friend in New York, in my hometown, who like till this day, we're in our 40s, but anytime I talk to him, he is at a drive-through, like getting fast food, And so in our teen years, that was the thing. Like I would be in his car, we would be at a drive-through, I'd be eating a whole bunch of junk food and doing what he was doing and not really thinking about like, wait, is this affecting my body differently than it's affecting his? I mean, junk food's not good for anybody, but especially when you have like health issues, you got to be extra careful about what you put into your system. So yeah, I definitely went through that phase where I just wanted to show people that I could do what they were doing. But at the same time, um, in the individual sense, I I never really wore what other kids were wearing. Like I kind of just, I mean, I cared a little bit about fashion and trend and stuff, but I feel like I come from such a large family, so a lot of the time I got like hand me downs, and so I would like wear my like sister's clothes or something. And shout out to Lydia and Mariana who would like always give me clothes when I was younger, or I would steal their clothes when they weren't home. So a lot of the time
Is
I
this
was
why
wearing
Lydia is
things that
finding out about missing clothes now?
so a lot of the time I was wearing things that like older kids were wearing, and the kids in my grade would be like wearing, what our age was wearing. And so it was weird. I guess that was where I was like individual. 'Cause I would wear a lot of my sister's clothes.
Well, how would you say you came home to yourself then?
Um, I came home to myself the minute that I wheeled into that classroom of kids with disabilities. That was when I was like, this is exactly where I belong. Like they were so like everyone has this like misconception of autism that they're just like very standoffish, which can be true at times, but I think that's for any person, we're all different in different situations. But the kids that I worked with specifically, they were so welcoming. Like I remember the first day that I wheeled in, they all got up, they like gave me hugs. They're like, thank you for coming to help us, with our schooling. And like, just, I was like, I love this. Like, why haven't I been doing this all along? Like, this is so great. Like, this is what I want to do. And so I think that that was the first time that I felt like a sense of belonging that, again, I didn't have to like shape myself into doing what other people were doing. I was just being me and I was being accepted by my environment. So that was probably the first moment. And then anytime I wheel into a classroom to read my stories, I get that same feeling. So it's, it's pretty cool that I get to relive that feeling every time. So.
That's beautiful. So, actually, let's talk about Cat Girl because this is where your work becomes so tangible and impactful. What inspired you to create your superhero in a wheelchair? Obviously, she's designed after you.
I always tell people that she's kind of like me, but she's cooler because her chair can fly and mine doesn't fly yet. So I always say yet because you never know. I mean, technology is crazy. Maybe I will start flying soon, but we don't know. So what inspired me would have to be the fact that when you're in a wheelchair, whether you like it or not, you're going to get stared at by children, by adults, by dogs, by anybody. They're all just going to stare as you wheel on by. and, um, and a lot of the time, I have always found this to be, you know, a pretty tricky situation to navigate. But as I've gotten older and more confident in myself again, I've used those moments as teachable moments where I'm like, do you want to know how my chair works? Do you want, like, this is a wheelchair. It's kind of like an adult stroller. And I teach them about the brakes and I teach them about, how the wheels move. And so, and this is out in the world. Like, this is not in a
Yeah.
classroom. And so, anyway, that whole just natural curiosity that is kind of surrounding the whole idea of disability is what inspired me to write this book, where I was like, I can create a character that is both educating children but also inspiring them and showing them that even though we have a challenge or a difference, we can still do anything else that we put our minds to. Again, the whole magical tree story comes to mind. And so I think that that's really what shaped the idea, was just the natural curiosity that I receive every time I'm in the public eye and people are just like, what is going on here?
Yeah. I can relate slightly. And it was a very short period, but in high school, I had actually broken my foot. So for a period, I had been in a wheelchair, and it's totally different. But I had that first experience of what it's like when you're getting wheeled around and people are like doing that awkward stare at you. And I remember specifically one day coming home and telling my mom, like, I feel so bad for children and like adults who have to live their day to day lives, because it's like some of the conception you can tell, like, just I guess energetically, though I didn't have the framing of this back then, you can feel like they're looking at you like you're different. And that in itself can have such a weight. So
Mhm.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and really hone in on the fact that you've managed to live your entire life this way. And it's like you didn't let that break your spirit at all. I
No,
mean, I'm sure you've had moments where it kind of like took a hit, but overall, your spirit never looked at it as like, I'm less than or anything like that. And I think that's beautiful.
thank you, thank you. And again, I definitely have brief moments when I was younger where I did feel less than, when you're getting bullied in school or you don't have a place to sit at the like in the cafeteria or whatever. So there were definitely those moments where I did feel less than, but at the same time I always felt like like this too shall pass. Like
Yeah,
something else is gonna happen that's gonna be good on the other end. And so I feel like I never really stayed stuck in that feeling. I always tried to find the silver lining and just kind of keep moving forward.
absolutely. Well, I'm curious though, why, once you really had this experience of working with the children, was it important for you to have children see themselves in a way where they're empowered now with their I don't want to call it a disability, but with the situation that's brought on hand, whether it's um medically or whatever, because let's just be honest, I'm sure there's children who are outside of the disability world who can also read your book and get impacted and just also know how to treat children with disabilities. I think that's such an important thing.
I think that is the beauty of my stories, is that I get to see both sides of the coin in real time. Like
Yeah.
I can wheel into a classroom and the kids will automatically like start whispering like, "Oh my god, she's in a wheelchair." And I'll ask them, "How does this make you feel?" And they'll be honest. Kids are so honest. They'll be like, "Oh,
Honest.
this makes me sad, this makes me worried, this makes me scared." And I'll just be like, okay. And I show no judgment. I just read the story and I ask the question again as soon as I'm done. And they're like, you are so cool. Does your chair fly too? So they get really excited about it. And that's one example of how I know my stories are changing the perception of disability for those that are non disabled. But on the flip side, also, there are many times that I'll go into a school and I'll get an email like a day or two before where the principal or the teacher or whoever will give me a heads up like, hey, you're going to be wheeling into a classroom where little Johnny is new in school and he's in a wheelchair. He feels really lost. Like, can you help him? And of course, like that is my mission in that moment. So I have little Johnny wheel up next to me, and he's my special helper for the day. And by the end of the day, I'll give you one example specifically where this was really cool. Actually, two. So briefly, I'll tell you. So there was one who not only had spina bifida himself, but he also was selective mute, and which meant that he wasn't much of a talker and communicator. But again, I was told that I would be meeting this kid, and when I met him, it was like we instantly clicked. By the end of the day, he was like wanting to race me down the hall, and we were like having a blast, you know? And so that was after he heard Cat Girl, that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to play with me, he wanted to communicate in his own way with me. And the following day, I get a text from his mother where she sent me a photo of him doing a book report on Cat Girl. Like, amazing, amazing,
Oh,
amazing experience. The second one was, again, another kid with spina bifida where the teacher told me, like, he's very shy, blah, blah, blah. I brought him up to the front of the room. He was my helper. And by the end of the day, he was like cracking jokes in front of his peers, like, yeah, my chair's cooler than yours. And like, look at this, like, your chair's old style, like, mine's new. And like, just making all these jokes in front of his peers. And I look over and his teacher just had tears in her eyes. Like, she was like so amazed that he was talking and communicating and making jokes in front of his peers because he was quote unquote shy, I guess. And so that's the power where I see it on both ends.
wow. That's incredible. So, talk about the cat girl effect in its full force. I'm curious, what does cat girl represent to you personally?
I always say that Cat Girl is not only my like invisible best friend, but she also gave me a purpose in life. Like the fact that I used a method that was once of writing that was once primarily just for me to get my emotions out and to kind of connect with my own feelings to now use that craft or that talent, I guess, as a way to help others deal with their own emotions and their own feelings of identity and things like that. That is so cool. Like I always say that like Cat Girl is my purpose. Like she's why I'm here.
I love this so much because it's like seeing it from such a clear. So, one of the taglines for my business is transform your pain into purpose. And
Hmm.
that's exactly to a T what you've done. You've taken something that was so painful and you've made it a part of your purpose to give back, to serve, to impact. And you're doing this on such a broad spectrum from the children to even adults. So I'm curious because so many women all carry stories of I'm different, I don't belong, I'm not enough. And these are whether you're disabled or not. So, what would you say to a woman who's listening right now who still feels like she has to hide parts of herself to be accepted?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Um, I would tell her, don't do it. Like, you're special no matter what anybody else says, no matter what society tries to paint as like the cool thing or the the term of, the not the term, the stereotype of beauty, the stereotype of what a woman should be. All that doesn't matter as long as you show up authentically and you show up as yourself. Somebody, whether it's an 80-year-old man in your doctor's office or a kid at your school dance, someone's going to show up for you and show you that you matter and show you that you have worth. And once those people come into your life, like invite them in because they're messengers of how you should really feel about yourself. So that's what I would try to say is to just tune out all the negativity and just try to be present and really embrace the people that are showing you the positive in yourself.
That's beautiful. So you help build confidence in children at an early age. What do you think is the difference between confidence that's taught and the confidence that's actually felt within themselves?
Um, wow, you're hitting me with some hard ones. I would say that it really depends on the person. So some of us, whether they have a disability or not, again, may drown in the messaging of the outside world of like, you don't belong, you're not good enough. And I think there has to be someone that kind of lifts you out of that, and tells you that you're worthy and that you deserve love, you deserve friendship, you deserve all the good things in life. And then I think there's other times that people just have that innate confidence in them, which is great. So I don't think that I think whether you get it from an outside source and it slowly builds within you or it's just in you already, I think it's still like important and should be celebrated, I guess is what I'm trying
Beautiful.
to say.
So have you ever had to borrow confidence or borrow belief?
Um,
Like confidence that someone instilled within you is what I'm asking about.
no, I think again, I would just take each moment as like a message of belief in myself, whether it was me fighting in the hospital for whatever health issue I was dealing with, or it was feeling like an outsider. There were moments that would come in and be like, okay, you're here for a reason, people, and so I think that I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's coming out right now.
It makes sense if it's what's coming through, so you don't worry about how it sounds on the outside. I think it's beautiful because you've technically dedicated over a decade now of advocacy and education. What is keeping you still so grounded on your mission?
I think eh, I think just knowing that my book and my presence has an impact is what keeps me going. I know that I can make a difference, and I've already seen it on a small scale within my community. And so I'm to a point where I want to expand and reach other communities and other school districts and maybe even one day go global. And so that's really what keeps me going is knowing that my message does make an impact and that I believe that it could reach more and more people if I just keep the dream and keep on going.
I'm gonna encourage you to go global. I feel like it's your right, your mission.
That's
I'm just saying.
dream. My like my own personal dream with Cat Girl is to see it become either an animated series or like I would be the next like Mr. Rogers, but like, in a wheelchair and a girl obviously and like so that's kind of where I see Cat Girl going on like a larger scale. And then the pinnacle for me personally would be to have one of those balloons in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade of Cat Girl just like floating by. Like that would be awesome because there's very little disability representation in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, and it bothers me. So I would love to have a float in the parade.
I have to admit, as you said that, I literally had like a whole flash of like a little like float going by. So Macy's, if you wanna, if someone from Macy's is listening to this, you know how to find Pat.
Right? I would love that. So those are the big dreams that I have for my mission.
That's beautiful. And I'm curious, you've also been creating a part of creating spaces like Adaptive Beach Day, which
Mhm.
is such a beautiful example of inclusion in action. Why is it so important for communities, not just individuals, to be a part of this work?
So again, I grew up in a small town where there was little to no diversity, and so I didn't even know much about the ADA or much, I really didn't know a lot about it. But then I moved down here and I eventually immersed myself into the world of disability, and I met so many incredible advocates. One being a good friend of mine, her name is Sabrina Cohen, who unfortunately had a car accident, and at the age of 14, where she suffered a spinal cord injury. And she spent
Oh,
many years trying to find different ways to kind of deal with this. But then I believe like in her early 30s, maybe late 20s, she decided to become an advocate for people with disabilities to feel included in society. And one of the ways that she did that was she started having what's called Sabrina Cohen Adapted Beach Day, which is once a month between April and November, every year. And it's just like a big beach party. They put these mats on the ground, and you see people with and without disabilities just coming together, eating food, going in the ocean, listening to music, whether it's like Bob Marley and Sublime and like whatever. Like we just like put on like a bunch of different kinds of music, and we just like have the time of our lives. And so I was really inspired by this, where I was like, this should be happening in other communities too. So luckily in 2017, I was crowned Miss Wheelchair Florida, and and I used that title as a leverage to meet with community leaders like mayors and governors and so on. And I told them about the need for beach access in all areas of Florida, not just in this one little nook that has this celebration once a month. It should be everywhere. And so luckily I was able to get 6 beaches accessible throughout my town and neighboring towns. And many years later, I was awarded by the city of Sunny Isles. In 2023, I was awarded for Disability Pride Month. And when I spoke to the the city at the city hall meeting, I told them, I said, thank you very much for this proclamation. I'm very grateful, but if we're going to talk about disability, pride, and inclusion, we have to really make things more inclusive. You can't just like give me a plaque and say, all right, be on your way. No, this now you need to take action. So I talked to them for about a year. We met several times to talk about doing an adaptive beach day in Sunny Isles. And last year it finally came into fruition and it was a lot of fun. We partnered with something called Surfers Healing, which is an organization that primarily brings children with disabilities out into the water and teaches them surfing, but they've expanded over the years to adults as well. And so that was really fun. I got to go surfing for like only like the third time in my whole life. So that was really fun.
Amazing. So when you zoom out, what impact do you hope your work really creates long term? Not just through your books, because as you mentioned, you just did a whole organized event. So this goes beyond like books and the day to day impact. But what do you hope, I guess, your legacy is? How
I
do you want
think
people to feel about themselves?
I think there's two things that I hope for my legacy. One is to have no person with a disability ever experience internalized ableism and just go out into the world and show everyone who you are, be yourself, be authentic, and just do the things that you love to do. That's number one. And number two, on the flip side, I want to show the non-disabled world that we're just people and that we deserve a space in this world and we deserve to experience the same joys and the same things that you have throughout your day to day. And so I think that that is my two biggest things that I would want for my legacy.
That's beautiful. So, what's next for you? What are you currently building, dreaming, calling in, and how can people connect with you?
So I have many dreams, but like I mentioned, I really would love to have my books turn into an animated series. I think that that would be like the coolest thing, you know, if Nickelodeon or PBS or Disney or whatever was just like, hey, yeah, I want to turn. That would be the dream. Um, or even Netflix. You know, I'm with the times. You gotta people stream things now. So that would be really cool too. I think definitely having that would be the biggest thing, but just having my books and my programs be in every school and be like a national thing, I think would be the biggest stepping stone that I would want to achieve currently.
That's incredible. And I'm sure ripples can happen. So, you get it in one school and then maybe another school finds out. So, that's incredible. To have you shift gears. And I mean, you've seen the episode with Lydia, so this won't be too much of a surprise. We're going to do a quick fire round. Are you ready for me?
I am ready.
So think just one word, one sentence. Don't feel too much pressure, whatever comes to mind quickly.
Okay.
Uh, what's a book that changed your life?
Joni.
Amazing. A word that describes your current season.
Belief.
Beautiful. Daily non negotiable that fuels your power.
Daily non-negotiable. I would say my morning routine. I need
Love.
my morning journal time. I need my like morning breathing time and just that is a non-negotiable for me. I don't care if I'm in the
Beautiful.
hospital, in my house, at a friend's house, like I need those that hour to myself.
I love that. You're very. One thing I'll give. This might be a Magnolia thing, but you guys are strict on your routines, and I love that. Shout out to Lydia. A song that instantly lifts your mood.
I would say that's a good one because I'm such a lyric person. But I would think the song that I always quote as something that relates to who I am as a person is, I believe it's called Don't Worry by Jason Mraz. And there's a line in it that says, "You can turn off the sun, but I'm still going to shine." That to me is like very much how I feel about myself at this point in my life, where I'm just like, you can throw anything at me and I'm still going to go out there. I'm still going to shine the best that I can and do what I got to do. And so that is the song that kind of, I guess, motivates me the most, I would say.
Beautiful. Best advice you've ever received in a single sentence. This is usually the one that throws people off.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many amazing conversations with people throughout my life. Um, I don't want to say that it was advice. I think it's just words of confidence that I've received, of like people just telling me how much my work has inspired them, or just knowing me has made an impact on them. Or again, with my mom and the magical tree story, of like instilling that thought of like, you can't walk but you can do anything else. I think just molding all those things together are just what kind of puts me to keep going in my day to day.
Beautiful. So, lastly, what's one thing you want women to stop apologizing for?
That you exist. Uh-uh. I mean, yeah, seriously, that you exist. I fall victim to this a lot, especially being a woman with a disability. There's a lot of the time that I'll be out in the world and like someone's trying to get by, and or I'm trying to get by, and there's like a tight space, and I will say something and I'll say, "Excuse me, sorry, thank you." And I've had to train myself to just drop the sorry. I don't need to say sorry, that I need to go through a
Pass.
space and that I need to do something. So now it's just, excuse me, thank you. Like, so I've had to kind of train myself to no longer apologize for taking up space or being who I am. And so I think that that is what I want for women, is to just stop apologizing for existing.
Beautiful. Well, Kat, I'm so grateful we did this conversation because it feels like such a reminder that our differences are never the thing that keeps us or makes us feel less. They're often the thing that makes us powerful. And for anyone who's listening, if something in you softened, if you feel seen, or maybe you even feel like you challenged a belief that you might have been holding, that's not random, it's an awareness. And awareness is where everything always begins. So, Kat, thank you again for the work you're doing and the spaces you're creating for children and adults, and for the way you're helping people at every age see themselves just a little differently. And as always, this is your reminder, you don't have to change who you are to be powerful. You just have to learn how to own it. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so